Hello everyone, welcome to Wildcat Conversations. Every career is built through lessons, trials, and breakthroughs. Change can be hard at the best of times. When it comes to making a career pivot or pushing for career advancement, it can be especially challenging to find your feet without mentorship and great leaders to help guide you. Luckily for us and you, we are joined by David Hufford, a journalism alum who spent almost 30 years at Microsoft using his gift for telling stories to help lead the company's communications team through many seasons and breakthroughs. David, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Tanya.
Yeah, we're excited to learn from you. And with all your experience and knowledge, if you could restart your career right now, what industry would you get into and why?
Good question. I think for me, it's less about industry and more about a mission or a purpose or a cause, that really gets me out of bed in the morning. When I first joined the Xbox team, they talked about the future of gaming and how it was going to be connected and people were going to be able to play with each other across this thing called the internet. And that was so energizing for me. I was so excited about that and thought, man, I could be part of something new and breakthrough and innovative. Microsoft also went through some transformations, where it used to say they wanted to put a PC on every desk and in every home. And then it transformed into a company that was about empowerment and empowering people to achieve more. And it's that empowerment mission that really drove me into the company and to stay at the company, frankly, for as long as I did. And so I think for most people, whether it's healthcare, agriculture, whether it's technology, which is pervasive across all industries today, really just finding something that lights you up and gets you excited to work every day.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm curious to also know, you were head of play and...
Work and play.
Work and play.
Yes.
I am curious to know, so what does a good work culture really mean? Does it mean, we have beer on Fridays and we play Nerf guns? What does that really feel like?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yes, you should play Nerf guns and you should have beers on Friday for sure. And I think it's really a culture where you feel like you can do your best work. Where you can be your best self, where you have a sense of belonging, where you feel valued, where you're getting good, honest feedback from people in caring ways, really you feel like you're cared for and you're also caring of other people. I think that's what makes a great culture. Also it's a diverse culture, people that come from different backgrounds and lived experiences, We're all different. We've all had different experiences, and sometimes there can be a bias to hire people like yourself into roles and build teams. That was kind of the early days of Microsoft. If you looked like me, you get a job, and if you had experiences like me, you get a job. And now, we were hiring people, with autism, to come into the company. People who couldn't even play video games because they couldn't put their hands on a controller. And we started to build technologies for everybody. And I think that's what you want, is you want a culture that makes everyone feel included.
Yeah, I love that. And I love how that's not the only industry that's evolved into being more inclusive so that everyone has access to that. And I want to ask you a follow-up question about, okay, so what if the work culture, sometimes it feels a little performative when it's so much fun to be here. And sometimes work can be fun, but it can't always be fun. What do you do, or what can people do to make sure that whatever work culture they belong to feels authentic to them? How can they feel authentic in that setting?
Yeah, I think staying curious, being a learner and really asking questions. When I first joined Microsoft, I was hesitant to ask questions because I thought I should know the answers to every question. But the way the workplace has evolved now, it's the people who ask the questions that everyone else wishes they could ask who really stand out. And so my thing is, I always encourage people to stay curious, to get deeply curious, to keep asking questions, because you don't have all the answers. It is going to be hard. And even, with my boss at Microsoft, I would ask him questions like, hey, what does success look like for this project? Even though I might think I should know the answer to that question, I wanted to hear what he thought, and I always learned something by asking those types of questions.
That's really good advice. I think that works for anything that you do, and I love that. I love that. And today, working professionals, we're expected to have a very versatile skill set and be adept in a wide range of technologies. What are some of the skills and qualities that you would recommend people sharpen to distinguish themselves from others and maybe ultimately earn promotions or break into a new industry?
I think back to curiosity, being a learn-it-all, somebody who's really interested in just learning everything and staying very curious. I think being open to change, work is changing. It's changing all the time, Before COVID, we were all going to the office. During COVID, we were all working remote. Now, post-COVID, there's a hybrid of solutions. Some people are being forced back to the office. And so change is constant, and how you adapt to change is really important. And I always tell people that when things are changing, the best thing to do is just slow down, slow yourself down, and ask questions. And don't write stories in your own head about what might be going on, because that can take you to some dark places. And then I think, technically, I think AI is going to have a huge impact on, the way we do our jobs. And, people sometimes ask, hey, will AI replace humans? And I think the answer to that is no, it won't. There will always be a need for us, thankfully. But really, people who want to get ahead will learn how to harness the power of AI, figure out how it can help them, get more done in a shorter amount of time. And it is amazing, when I use the tools, it's amazing how much it can help, really open my world, teach me some new things. I've got to fact check a lot, that's for sure. But I use AI to help me stay more productive and to move on to things that are more important, like, human connection with the people that I'm working with.
Yeah, I love that. And I don't know if you knew, but the Chico State Alumni Association has recently partnered with Coursera, and we offer professional certificates for our alums because we know that this is one of the things that our alums need to do. We need to stay relevant, and we need to continue to learn so that we can be ready and feel ready for the workplace. And so Coursera has now included Gen AI in some of those courses, and they're optional. Not everybody has to take those portions to be able to earn the certificate, but we're trying to do what we can to also make sure that we're offering our alums a point of reference so they can continue to feel supported by us as they navigate their professional journey.
I think that's great. I think it's important to, download an app on your phone, to use AI every day, and to push it the limits of what might be possible in using it. If you get stuck on something, like you need to write a headline, but you just can't figure it out, use it as a thought partner to help you think through things. If you need to quote somebody, and you're thinking, hey, how do I put this more in the voice of this person? It can offer you suggestions. And so I think, it's the people who use AI that I think are going to leap ahead of others. And of course, we all have to be, to use it responsibly and bring the human element to everything that we do as well.
Speaking of change, we're seeing a lot of change and uncertainty across industries right now. Layoffs and acquisitions by smaller businesses and by big players. What advice would you give to people who are trying to navigate uncertainty and change in their jobs, or maybe the realization that it's time to make a change?
Well, then I think you have to figure out what's in your control and what's not in your control, right? And I think part of what's in your control is how engaged are you? How much are you engaging with your manager? How often are you talking with your manager? They say people don't leave jobs, they leave managers. And I think it's so important, for people to have an exceptional manager that they feel like, hey, I can pick up the phone, call them anytime, text with them anytime. Whenever I get stuck or whenever I'm feeling afraid, anxious, those things are really, really important. And just making sure, continuously checking in with your manager especially, that what you're working on, it matters to the organization.
I'm always curious to ask people in leadership positions, what do you do when you have other leaders in your team that have leadership qualities, but are not necessarily in leadership positions? And And how do you, as a manager, either celebrate that and encourage that, or don't? I don't know. I don't know your managing style, your management style. And then, what can people that have leadership skills do to manifest that in a way that it's well perceived as well?
I think everyone's a leader. Everyone can be a leader. You don't have to manage people to be a leader. We all lead by examples. And I think some of the most powerful things that I've seen anybody in an organization do really well to stand out as a leader is, number one, driving clarity. Hey, what mission are we on as a team? What is the goal of this project we're working on? What does success look like? And really getting that clarity inside the teams and the organizations that you work on. I find the people who stop the room with the best questions are the ones that we look at as the leaders. The other one is generating energy. There are people who generate energy on a team, bring people together, love collaborating with other people. Those are the people you want. Like, work is a team sport. And there are some people who isolate themselves and they can get negative on things, or they can, express their anxiety or their frustration, inside an organization, and that can become toxic. And so my other piece of feedback for people is generate energy for yourself and for the people that you work with. That's what leadership looks like.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think that's something sometimes we take for granted, how we show up and how that affects others, and then how it ultimately comes back to us. So I like that, understanding what's under your control, like you said earlier, and then also you control your energy. So
I'll tell you a story. I remember when Microsoft wanted to make its big push into artificial intelligence. It was December of 2022, and we left for the holidays thinking, in late February, we're going to tell the world what we're working on. Well, we came back from the holidays and we were told, it's not going to be late February, it's going to be early February. And so the deadline moved up by a couple of weeks. And that was an important moment, for me as the leader of the project, to instill confidence that it would be okay, because people were, anxious. Hey, are we going to be ready? It was already pushing a hard deadline to get there by the end of February. Moving it up is going to be hard. And it's your responsibility, no matter where you sit in an organization, to kind of disagree and commit, as they say, and commit to the cause and say, okay, that decision's been made. That's not in my control, but what is in my control is how I react and respond to it.
David, if you had one piece of advice that you could share with a recent graduate or with a Chico State alum, what would that be?
I think there are two. One is build relationships. At the end of the day, when you look back on your career, you're going to realize that there were key people that helped you get to where you ultimately went. And really, like, networking, getting to know people on a human level, not just on a work level, but on a human level as well, is so important. You build your network that way. And when you're ready for your next job, you have a group of people that you can count on to advocate for you, to watch out for you, and hopefully help you land the next big role for you. So that's one. I would also say expressing gratitude, and just being grateful for the opportunities that you get, the leaders that you get to learn from, the people that you get to learn from in an organization. And it's all around you. It's not just your manager or the bosses in an organization, but it's your colleagues. It's the people who maybe just came into an organization that did something that, maybe other people, it went unnoticed, but you noticed it. I think it's so important to just express that gratitude. And I think if you do those two things, you'll go far.
Yeah. I think we sometimes forget in all this digital, era that human connection is still the way to navigate our experience. So yeah, 100%. Thank you for that. That makes sense. Thank you very much for being here with us and for sharing some of your insight and wisdom that you have acquired in your career. Thank you everyone for joining us. Tune in for our next episodes. And if you take anything from today's episode, is to make sure you stay authentic and show up as your favorite self. Thank you.